Organization's #1 chief scientist, who is the face of the WHO, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. Does that name sound familiar? If you watched episode 8, you saw her telling you this about vaccines.
Vaccines are very safe. That's why we have vaccine safety systems, robust vaccine safety systems. WHO works closely with countries to make sure that vaccines can do what they do best, prevent disease without risks.
Now, here's what she said less than a week after the World Health Organization ran that vaccines are very safe propaganda commercial. Thanks to Del Bigtree and Highwire for this shocking footage.
I think we cannot overemphasize the fact that we really don't have very good safety monitoring systems in many countries, and this adds to the miscommunication and the misapprehensions because we're not able to give clear-cut answers when people ask questions about the deaths that have occurred due to a particular vaccine, and this always gets blown up in the media. One should be able to give a very factual account of what exactly has happened and what the cause of deaths are. But in most cases, there's some obfuscation at that level, and therefore there's less and less trust then in the system.
Whoa! I thought vaccines were safe. I thought they had robust safety monitoring systems. I thought vaccines prevented disease without risks. That's what Dr. Swaminathan told us in the commercial, but then she said the exact opposite in closed-door meetings.
Here's Dr. Heidi Larson, the founding director of the Vaccine Confidence Project and former head of global immunization communication at UNICEF, describing safety science in the current vaccine program.
There's a lot of safety science that's needed, and without the good science, we can't have good communication. So although I'm talking about all these other contextual issues and communication issues, it absolutely needs the science as the backbone. You can't repurpose the same old science to make it sound better if you don't have the science that's relevant to the new problem. So we need much more investment in safety science.
Wait a minute. Dr. Larson, do you mean that science is lacking? We thought the science was settled. We thought that anyone who suggested that we needed more safety science was a conspiracy theorist, a nut job, an anti-vaxxer.
If Dr. Larson has a Facebook page, she better watch out because she just violated their no anti-vaxxer policy by stating that we need more safety science. Next up is Dr. Marianne Gruber, the director of the Office of Vaccines Research and Review at the FDA.
One of the additional issues that complicates safety evaluation is if you look at and you struggle with the length of follow-up that should be adequate in a, let's say, pre-licensure or even post-marketing study, if that's even possible. And again, as you mentioned, pre-licensure clinical trials may not be powered enough. It's also the subject population that you administer the adjuvant to, because we've seen data presented to us where an adjuvant, a particular adjuvant added to a vaccine antigen did really nothing when administered to a certain population, and it's usually the elderly, compared to administering the same formulation to younger age strata. So these are things which need to be considered as well and further complicate safety and effectiveness evaluation of adjuvants combined with vaccine antigens.
Did you get what Dr. Gruber just said? One of those pesky little things that complicate safety evaluations is the fact that the clinical trials, quote, may not be powered enough. And that fact really needs to be considered when evaluating safety. Let me translate. We don't have enough clinical trials to determine if vaccines are really safe or not, especially with the combination of antigens and adjuvants.
Here's Dr. Martin Howell-Frieda, coordinator of the World Health Organization Initiative for Vaccine Research, describing the association of adjuvants with vaccine injury and the need to build confidence in the vaccine program. You won't hear this on 60 Minutes.
Every time that there is an association, be it temporal or not temporal, the first accusation is it is the adjuvant. And yet, without adjuvants, we are not going to have the next generation of vaccines. And many of the vaccines that we do have, ranging from tetanus through to HPV, require adjuvants in order for them to work. So the challenge that we have in front of us is, how do we build confidence in this? And the confidence, first of all, comes from the regulatory agencies. To Marianne. When we add an adjuvant, it's because it is essential. We do not add adjuvants to vaccines because we want to do so. But when we add them, it adds to the complexity. And I give courses every year on how do you develop vaccines, how do you make vaccines. And the first lesson is, while you're making your vaccine, if you can avoid using an adjuvant, please do so. Lesson 2 is, if you're going to use an adjuvant, use one that has a history of safety. And lesson 3 is, if you're not going to do that, think very carefully.
It almost seems like he was insinuating that adjuvants were increasing the frequency of adverse reactions from vaccines.
It seems to me that adjuvants multiply the immunogenicity of the antigens that they are added to, and that is their intention. It seems to me they multiply the reactogenicity in many instances, and therefore it seems to me that it is not unexpected if they multiply the incidence of adverse reactions that are associated with the antigen, but may not have been detected through lack of statistical power in the original study.
Did he just say that adjuvants multiply the incidence of adverse reactions? Let's see how Dr. Martin Howell-Frieda responds.
You are correct. As we add adjuvants, especially some of the more recent adjuvants, such as the AS01 sapellin-derived adjuvants, we do see increased local reactogenicity. The primary concern, though, usually is systemic adverse events rather than local adverse events. And we tend to get in the phase 2 and the phase 3 studies quite good data on the local reactogenicity. Those of us in this room that are beyond the age of 50 who've had the pleasure of having the recent shingles vaccine will know that this does have quite significant local reactogenicity. If you got the vaccine, you know that you got the vaccine. But this is not the major health concern. The major health concern which we are seeing are accusations of long-term effects. So to come back to this, I'm going to once again point to the regulators. It comes down to ensuring that we conduct the phase 2 and the phase 3 studies with adequate size and with appropriate measurement.
Let me translate what he just said. When it comes to adjuvants and vaccines, we know when there are local reactions, like when you get a shot like in the shoulder and you get swelling at the point where you got the injection. But we have no freaking clue about systemic adverse events. And we really do need to design some phase 2 and phase 3 studies with adequate size and appropriate measurement to help us figure out if vaccines cause long-term adverse events.
Wait. Is this the same organization that 1 week before this summit had released a commercial stating vaccines are safe and they prevent disease without risk? Wow.
Yeah. So here's a response from Dr. David Kaslow about this small, in other words, inadequate sample sizes and the, quote, tyranny of small numbers. Listen to this.
So in our clinical trials, we are actually using relatively small sample sizes. And when we do that, we're at risk of tyranny of small numbers, which is you just need a single case of Wegener's granulomatosis, and your vaccine has to. So Waltz, how do you prove a null hypothesis? And it takes years and years to try to figure that out. So it's a real conundrum, right? Getting the right size, dealing with the tyranny of small numbers, making sure that you can really do it. And so I think one of the things that we really need to invest in are kind of better biomarkers, better mechanistic understanding of how these things work, so we can better understand adverse events as they come up.
Did you get that? Dr. Kaslow mentioned that since their sample size is so small when monitoring adverse events, that if one person is seriously injured, it takes a while to massage the numbers to make it appear that the vaccine is safe, and that's a real conundrum. And one of the needed investments is better biomarkers and a better understanding of adverse events.
I thought they had already invested in the safety monitoring system, but Here we have the third or fourth person at this summit admitting they actually do not have safety systems in place.
And those are the people, they're not just people, these are the doctors and scientists who create vaccine policy for the world at the World Health Organization. Some of the doctors in attendance appeared truly concerned about these admissions. Here's a very good question from Dr. Basi Akposon from Nigeria.
I cast back my mind to our situation in Nigeria, where at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, a child is being given different antigens from different companies. And these vaccines have different adjuvants, different preservatives, and so on. Something crosses my mind. Is there a possibility of these adjuvants, preservatives, cross-reacting amongst themselves? Have there ever been a study on the possibility of cross-reactions from the panel members that you can share the experience with us?
Wow, great question. Dr. Akposon is truly concerned about his people in Nigeria and the adverse cross-reactions that can occur from injecting them with multiple vaccines, with multiple adjuvants, and multiple antigens.
Have studies ever been done on using multiple vaccines in combination? One of the doctors had that exact same question at the ACIP meeting in February of 2018. FYI, ACIP is the acronym for Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which is an arm of the CDC.
Is there any comment on using this vaccine at the same time with other adjuvanted vaccines?
We have no data to make a recommendation one way or the other.
So just to sort of put this in context of other vaccines, whilst preclinical studies were not done using these vaccines simultaneously, our general approach to immunizations is that they can be given at the same time in different limbs.